Well, we made it out. We have safe ice. We're gonna kind of go around the outside of this basin. We're gonna go kind of around the outer ring where it starts to get a little bit shallower. And we're just gonna drill out, try to find some schools of fish. And I'm gonna give you a bunch of tips and tricks along the way. So stay tuned, we're gonna go find some fish. There are so many fish down here right now. Geez, that guy was fired up. There we go. There we go. Get him to go, there we go. That one bit. That is what you like to see. We're gonna bump out to about probably 100, 140. And since we are getting out a little farther, I'm also gonna bump up the gain a little bit. Not too worried about interference right away. I'm just gonna try to find some of these fish. So I'm gonna kind of pan around and see what we're working with. You can see it get a little shallow up along that stretch. Maybe, there you actually can see off in the distance, there's maybe one group. It's actually about straight out ahead of us. You can see one group about 100 to 130 feet away. These early ice crappies are so spooky. So my goal is to keep everything on my snowmobile and bounce around and chase these fish, but I just anticipate that they're gonna be spooky even with a little bit of snow. We're gonna run up over there, drill a hole a little bit closer, about 100 feet. We're gonna drill up and see if we can't get on these fish. You can see a group, actually they might be coming maybe this way. Yeah, now they're scooting out a little bit further. There's kind of a couple different rules of thumb or a couple different trains of thought when looking at these basin crappies. One is to drill a hole and just wait them out because they are going to be cruising around. And honestly, when you're moving around, sometimes it'll spook them. As you get more and more snow, they spook a little bit less, but they're still going to be moving, especially during the daytime like this. Me, I'm way too ADD. I like the other rule of thumb, typically where I just drill out a big area and I hop around trying to get on top of these fish, trying to tell where they're going and see if I can kind of track them down as I move. You know, there's oftentimes multiple groups of fish in these basins, and if you can find an area that's holding at least a group or a couple groups of fish, then you can kind of break it down, kind of drill out that area, and that's what we're gonna do here. I'm gonna kind of drill out this whole area right here. It's almost like a little bit of a secondary basin, a little bit shallower, close to the deep basin, and so we'll drill that out and just move around and see if we can't get on top of these fish here. All right, let's see if we see any fish roaming or if I spooked all of them out here. Seems that I may have spooked all of them out. Well, no surprise, after drilling out all those holes, all the fish spooked. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna kind of go to the perimeter of these holes and just see if any of these fish are still kind of in the area. Honestly, a lot of times what you'll see, unless it's a pretty big basin, a lot of the fish will eventually kind of come back. They'll maybe spook out. So they might eventually come back, but we'll drive around the perimeter, see how far away they are, see if it's worth drilling out some more holes or not, and see if we can drill out some more of this basin here. Oh yeah, it's a good group. See if I can get down and capitalize. Sometimes those biggest fish are those ones on top and a little bit more aggressive. That one looks more aggressive. Oh. Come on. There we go. You can tell that one's a little more aggressive, but we are on the board. Feels decent. I really should have. Oh, not too bad. We have our first crappie. I'm gonna pop them off right away. Try to get back down if I can. Actually got a kind of a second group moving through, so I might even have time to get down to that one. Even though it's sunny and calm and it feels awesome out, it is still very cold. We're in single digits, so stuff is still freezing up pretty good. But man, does it feel good to be out on good ice. No wind, just absolutely gorgeous. So this is what we've been waiting for all winter. It's a perfect day to do this, kind of get out and hole hop. I've been trying to make sure I clear out my holes in case I come back and fish them, but this is one of the ones that I did not. Oh, come on, another one coming up. See if he wants it. Not coming up quite as aggressive, but we might get him to go. There we go. Does not feel very big. Ooh, popped off. That's okay. That is one of the things with these crappies is you definitely have to capitalize. I'm going to zoom in here a little bit, make it a little easier to see for everyone. Oh, they might actually be scooting a little closer, that group. That's the thing, depending on which way these fish move, if you can get them in their right path. Try to move that over a little bit, give my jig a little more space. Ooh, that one looks aggressive. You can see him coming out of the pack. Coming up for it. Oh, I thought he was going to smoke it. He wanted to right away. Second one coming up. It's nice when you get a little school moving through. That one bit. Feels decent. Again, these fish are probably 15 to maybe 20 feet down. We're on the edge of that basin, so we're not quite as deep. But you can see, second one, again, more fish down there, so we're gonna try, get down and capitalize on these fish. Wanting to get them back down quickly. One, because I'm not keeping them, and two, because there's more fish down there. Oh, so like I was saying, we are definitely more on the edge of this kind of deep water basin. You know, I think the deepest part is 30, 35 feet maybe. We're sitting at about 28, 29, kind of depending on the area, somewhere up in 26. I think we've got kind of lucky with this school sticking around right underneath us. That does not always happen. Usually you can get maybe one or two, but if you get a group sticking around, geez, that one came up again. Pretty fired up. Like I said, if you can get a group sticking around like this, you can put some work in pretty quick. I mean, you can just see how many fish are down there right now. Another decent fish. Show him off quick. Not gonna measure him. We're just gonna get him off. He's nice and lip hooked. Again, not to getting into the drama, but it's nice fishing these fish that are 15, 20 feet down, because, you know, there's not gonna be as much of a possibility of some of those barrel trauma. One more quick look, try to get him back down, because I tell you what, as much as that uncut angling video has caused some controversy, I do really appreciate what he had to say about making your handling quicker, because that honestly made me even think about myself. You know, you want to get a good shot for the viewers, you want to get some of that, or if it's a big fish, getting a picture. And so that definitely made me think as an angler, again, these ones aren't going to be in a huge risk of barrow trauma, but the fact remains, the quicker you can get these fish back in the water, the better. Ooh, that one in front looks pretty aggressive. Make sure everything's cleared, line is cleared and everything. Maybe that isn't a pike, maybe it's a decent crappie. Whatever it is, it's coming in pretty hot. Oh, I think it spooked some of those crappies away though. I think they're kind of skirting the edge of us right now. They're beelining it right towards us. And then that pike came through. That's all right, that'll give us a quick little chance to talk. All right, so we're able to kind of track down that school of fish. You saw my grid is kind of back behind me over here. These fish weren't too far off, but you know, when I drilled those holes, those fish kind of spooked, which you will often see, especially we don't have a lot of snow right now, but as that get more snow and the ice gets thicker, that's going to happen less and less. But we're still relatively, we got about 8-9 inches of ice right here, and I don't know, 3 inches of snow maybe, so they're still getting a little bit spooky, and they just move so much early in the year like this. So I got here, and obviously that first hole that I drilled, there was fish around. Tried to drill out a grid around them so they would kind of stay in the area, but they spooked out here a little bit more. And so I got on the other side of them, drilled my hole. They were actually starting to head towards my grid again, drilled about halfway in between that hole. This is where they kind of circled through. You can see a few different groups kind of cruising in. They move around so much. So if you can get on a group like that, you can capitalize pretty quickly. You can get up and get down very quickly. Again, that's why I like some of these little bit heavier jigs. This one that I'm currently using is a Tungsten Jig. This one is by Euro Tackle. This is, I believe they call it the ESR or something like that. It's supposed to be made to be able to be picked up on the Livescope a little easier, just with some of the straight angles. And that is, again, a little plastic by Euro Tackle. I'd have to go back and look to see exactly what it's called. But it's tungsten, so it gets down relatively quickly. Again, it's not windy today, so that's been super helpful, but even that little bit of cold, you can see my line's freezing up. There's still some slush in the hole because I truly didn't anticipate fishing in this hole. I just drilled it to see where these fish were moving. So that's what we caught those fish on. This is the 32-inch light by Piscifun. This is a nice panfish rod. I've been finding it has paired with the Carbon X500 by Piscifun, a great kind of panfish size rod, and honestly can be used for walleyes in the wintertime as well. This originally comes with a spring bobber. The spring bobber was too light for kind of what I like to use. Some of these little more dense jigs, it was just flopping down a little too much, so I actually pulled it off. So this 32-inch light without that spring bobber has actually been about perfect for some of these crappies like this. You know, if you're using a really, really small presentation or going for bluegills, then you might want to use that spring bobber, maybe even use the ICX Frost inline reel. I'm not as big of a fan of inline reels. I'm still partial to my spinning reels, but I know a lot of people who do like those have really liked that ICX Frost. So that's kind of what we're working with. That is kind of how we broke it down. It was all kind of a quick hitter. It's still midday, and if you can catch a few fish like this midday, it's gonna take some work. You're gonna have to move around, but if you can capitalize like this, you can see you can catch a few fish in a short amount of time when that school is moving through, but you gotta be quick. Just on the other side, so I'm really quickly gonna go drill a hole about 30 feet that way, try to spook them closer. Let's see if it works. They are starting to slide a little bit closer. Have a little bit bigger spoon on. My hope is to maybe trigger some bigger bites. A few more fired up. One's coming up pretty hard. I maybe made a mistake by switching baits. There we go. As one bites. We'll see, it does not feel super big, but now it's getting a little more feisty. I'm also hooked up in the transducer. Again, in a perfect world, I would, there we go, a few more down there. That was on the T-Flasher by Euro Tackle. All right, so I've kind of lost that school. Sometimes you can stay on a school pretty good and then they eventually just spook or they split up. Got a pretty good grid drilled out here, so I'm actually gonna go check some of those holes that I first drilled out, see if some of those fish have kind of moved back into that area, and I'll just kind of bounce around on some of the perimeter of these and see if we can't get an idea of where another group is. Looks like there's maybe a group of fish coming this way. So many things for this line to get caught up on. They are moving quick. Don't like that. Oh yeah. Geez, that guy was fired up. Oh, that is what you like to see. Maybe that'll make him stick around a little bit. Seems a little better. That's a solid fish. Oh yeah. It's the biggest of the day here. I'm gonna get him off quick here, show him off. There we go, probably gonna be very bright behind me, but nicest fish of the day, probably close to that 13-inch range. Again, we'll get that down right away. I don't know if any of those other fish are still gonna be around. So hopefully this will work out, but I have an idea to overlay the map over top of my drone footage here. And actually what you're seeing the grid of the holes. And we are on the edge of this deep basin. The basin probably goes out to 35-ish, something like that, a little bit deeper. We're sitting closer to the edge. There's kind of a break on this bowl, and these fish are just kind of cruising around along these edges. Sometimes you'll see them out over the middle, but what I tend to find, especially early in the year like this, is these fish are definitely a little bit closer to the edges. So I started working around this edge, and now I've drilled out this hole. You know, shallower holes are maybe 26 feet. These deeper holes are closer to that 29, 28, maybe 30 feet. We're kind of drilled out that edge as these kind of schools are moving around. They're staying in that kind of 15 to 20 feet down and kind of moving. We are going to zoom out here on the Livescope. We're going to kind of pan around and see if these fish have moved around, if we need to keep drilling some holes. Honestly, that worked out okay, not drilling first. They didn't spook as much. I was able to drill and these fish were moving right towards me. So if that's the case, we're going to do that with the snowmobile. So I'm going to pan around, see where these fish are moving, see if we can't get ahead of them here. These fish keep hanging right around that hole that I have drilled over there. So I'm going to turn the camera so you can see me over there, and I'm going to unplug the iPad so I can still see what's going on, see if they spook. I'm going to go over to this hole connected with the Wi-Fi here. You can see I'm dropping down. I should get my head cam on, is what I should have on. Oh, there, it kind of connected again. It lost it for a second. Don't know how well it's recording. It's kind of glitching because I'm here. I'll hold it up like this. I don't know if I'm still connected or not. I know I'm gonna get some hate in the comments for this. People are always throwing shade on using Livescope and da-da-da-da. So I can only imagine what this is gonna be. But I am definitely losing connection. This is, oh my gosh, I think I have one, but I don't, oh, it's a bluegill. Well, nice size bluegill. So you can see they are out here roaming as well. Well, that was a little interesting, but I was able to catch something doing that, so I don't know, it was pretty glitchy, so I'm guessing that's what the footage is going to show up like. It just got a little too far away. So yeah, you can see that's kind of the game plan out here, is find a basin. I like to work the edges first, and one thing that's unique about this spot, actually, there's just a little bit of like a secondary basin where it kind of flattens out. There's the break, kind of flattens out. It's almost like an inside turn, but it's pretty big. It's not like a tight inside turn like I talked about the walleyes. There might be fish still cruising over the main basin too, but just something to key in on to try to make these large basins just a little bit smaller. Well, as you can see, I am not out chasing basin crappies anymore. I actually was up looking at some shallow stuff, seeing if some crappies are moving a little closer to shore, and saw what looked like some walleyes cruising through, some bigger fish. And so I actually punted a little bit, set up camp for some walleyes. So I just got done shooting a walleye video actually, so stay tuned for that. That'll be coming out here shortly as well. But either way, hopefully you're able to find some value in this kind of basin crappie bite, giving you a little visual, kind of an overhead visual, seeing what these fish are doing. That way you can have a better understanding of what's going on, whether you have a live scope or not. You can kind of see what these fish are doing and hopefully be able to make your time more efficient chasing after these things, because as you see, they move a ton. But if you like the little bit of switch up with some crappie stuff, let me know in the comments below if you like me mixing in some of this other multi-species stuff, especially in the winter like this. And appreciate the support. I'll see you next time.